Hello there, everyone. Chris Hobart here, the Wealthologist, and welcome back to another edition of the Wealthologist Weekly. And today, we're going to dig into some hot off the press news that's probably going to get a little bit of attention because election day is just around the corner. You see, the third quarter GDP report is coming out next Wednesday. And while the U.S. economy hasn't hit recession territory yet, there's definitely some red flags that we need to pay attention to. So let's talk about what's really going on behind the numbers. Now, sure, in the past couple of years, monetary policy, it's been tight. The Fed, they raised rates, and that's supposed to cool things down, right? But here's the kicker. Those interest rate hikes took a long time to really make a dent in the economy. Meanwhile, the government's been doing its best impression of Santa Claus with massive budget deficits, which keep funneling money into the economy. Now, to put this into perspective, the fiscal year 2024 deficit came in at a jaw-dropping $1.832 trillion. Now, that's 6.4% of GDP, folks. And this isn't a one-off. We saw a deficit over 6% last year, too. Now, mind you, all of this happening while unemployment is under 4%. To say this is unprecedented is, it's an understatement. Here's the big question. Are these deficits masking the real impact of tighter monetary policy? And I'd say probably. It's like we're walking on a financial tightrope, if you will. And now, despite the crazy deficits, you've got to give it up for the innovators and the entrepreneurs who are pushing the economy forward naturally, especially in the tech world. If we look at this, these folks are jumping over government hurdles like Olympians did this summer. But when you break it down, about half of the job creation this past year, it's come from government and healthcare sectors. So who's really pulling the weight here? Government spending or private sector innovation? And this is a bit of a tough call. All right, I want to zoom in on the picture of the economy a bit more. And now we're estimating that real GDP grew at a 3% annual rate in Q3. Now, most of that growth came from, you guessed it, consumer spending. We've talked about this time and time again. That's a big mover for our economy, about 70%. Americans are still out there swiping their credit cards. Even if auto sales aren't booming right now, people are still spending money. And we're expecting real consumer spending on goods and services to have grown at a 3.5% rate, which would add a solid 2.4 percentage points to GDP. Now, the thing is, business investment, this is also an important driver in the economy, but this is a bit more of a mixed bag this time. Intellectual property is leading the way, but commercial construction, it's actually taken a slight dip. Now, we're calling it a 1.7% growth rate for business investment, which adds about 0.2% percentage points to the overall GDP number. And then there's the housing market, which, let's be honest, it's been on the struggle bus a little bit lately. Between higher mortgage rates and local red tape, residential construction looks like it shrank by 5%. Now, different in different markets, of course, but that's overall across the U.S. That alone knocks off about 0.2 points from GDP growth. That's a bit of an ouch. Now, here's the thing. Don't worry, because government spending, they are stepping up. Direct purchases of goods and services by the government, well, that added about another 0.3%, 0.3 points rather, to the GDP number. Now, that's not a huge amount, but every little bit counts, right? Then we've got trade. Exports and imports, they both grew, but exports were a little bit stronger. So we're looking at the trade deficit shrinking just enough to add another 0.2 points to the GDP. Now, finally, the last thing we want to look at with this is inventories. They were up just a bit, which gave us another 0.1 point to GDP growth. So when we begin to add all these numbers up, and I know there's a lot of these 0.1s and 0.2s, but we're sitting at 3% real GDP growth rate for Q3. Now, that's just a guesstimate. The thing here is that's not a recession yet. But it doesn't mean that we're out of the woods. I want you to keep in mind, we've still got some reports coming in before the GDP is finalized, things like durable goods and international trade data that could tweak these numbers slightly. To wrap everything up, while the economy is still growing, the underlying issues, which would be massive deficits, high interest rates, and uneven sector growth, well, that means that we could be in for a bit of a bumpy ride in the coming months. So, as always, buckle up. We are here for you to have those conversations with you. Now, if you found this data helpful and you want to share this breakdown with somebody, please do. Also, hit the like button or drop a comment below and make sure that you subscribe for more updates. I do have a question for you. Do you think that the U.S. economy is going to enter a recession in 2024? Let me know what you think in the comments, or maybe shoot me an email and let me know your thoughts. And also, like I'd mentioned before, share this with anyone who needs a little economic reality check. We're always happy when you hit that share button. As always, I'm Chris Hobart, the Wealthologist. See you next time on the Wealthologist Weekly.